Sweet. So, let's see if I'm in this.
Okay.
All right. I am here with Dr. Dave Templin. Through this video, I'll be calling him Doc, as that's what I know him by, and many other people here know him by. So, this is the topic of sports psychology. So, let's start with the background of who you are and just your life.
Well, I grew up here in Parkland,
Right.
went to PLU, hung around PLU football games when I was little, so saw a lot of Frosty's attitude stuff with the team and the guys, and a lot about teamwork and those kind of things. And then I played football here in college, so I got to learn more about, we didn't really call it sports psychology at that time, we called it attitude training. And
Okay.
I don't even know if we called it training, but we just did a ton of work around attitude and that kind of stuff. So then after playing football here, then I went up, did my master's work at Western Washington University. From there I went on to the University of Kansas, was there for about 5 years, finishing my degree out there and then working there as well.
All right, sweet. All right, so you touched on it a little bit, but like, what made you interested in sports psychology or like the attitude training?
Yeah, so being around and playing for Frosty and learning how to set goals and the mind and what it was capable of, and watching a lot of physically overmatched football teams beat teams that were much bigger, stronger, and faster. And just, I was always amazed at how that worked and how much of it had to do with our team chemistry that we kind of worked on from day one in Breakaway. But also, you know, overcoming adversity, difficult situations that we were in. Guys were used to doing that, and so the reason we could do that is because we talked about it all the time. We talked about how to prepare, what kind of mindsets to have, and that kind of stuff. So it was always fun to learn those things and then go on to study it more and more in depth later on.
Sweet. So, were there any courses you took that seemed most beneficial to help you become like where you are right now?
Yeah, so when I was here, Frosty taught a sports motivation class, and it was still just a developing field at that point in the early 80s. So that was a lot of fun. Our history and foundations of physical education class kind of delved into the psychological components of athletic performance and, you know, health and fitness, recreation kind of things. So those kind of got my interest peaked a little bit. And then going on to my master's degree, was actually up at Western coaching some basketball, and we had a sports psychology guy that worked with our team, and he said, "Hey, I'm starting a master's program." And so I jumped into that because I was really interested in it as an undergrad, and that got me more interested. And then he said, "Well, hey, I've got this friend out at Kansas," and so I heard some of the guy out at Kansas, Dr. David Cook, some of his teaching, and really loved that. So kind of those, each class sparked a new interest, and yeah, I kept going. So
Sweet. So you spoke on it about a master's. So was that what you needed to become a sports psychologist, or was it like helpful to go an extra set since you are Doc?
Well, so sports psychology is really one of those things that it's a little bit like physical education. No one's exactly sure where the lines are. Some people will say, well, you're not a psychologist, so you don't belong with us in the APA. You know, you really don't have a whole lot of certification kinds of things. You can get certified through ASP. I don't even know if it's ASP anymore, but it's the kind of national foundation there. A lot of people that I know started and studied sports psychology and then took kind of the entrepreneurial route.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on what you want to do with your degree later on, where you want to go. There's a number of performance psychologists that work with the military and special forces. There's, you know, people that work at the professional level, Division I level, smaller college, high schools. A lot of high school and college coaches will learn about it because they know it will help their teams.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you want to do when you're done and how much training you need in it specifically. I wanted to get a PhD because I wanted to be able to teach at the college level. So that's kind of why I kept going on. You know, you can get a minor in sports psychology here, you know, and do, if you're just going to coach, then that's great because that supplements your coaching and gets you interested and dialed into some of the topics. If you want to go on and do more things, be an entrepreneur or serve at a higher university, then you got to move up the ladder in terms of degrees and stuff.
So like getting like even a minor in sports psychology, is it easy enough to get a job in like teaching for different fields or coaching?
Well, if you're gonna, if you want to teach at the college level, you need a PhD or an ED. You know, you need a doctoral or terminal degree is what they call it, because you're not going to get tenured. You're not going to be someone that's there all the time. You might do an adjunct class at a place with just a minor in something and some coaching experience. It depends on the school and what their needs are, what the availability is, those kind of things. So really, there's a wide range. It's not like, you know, to be a medical doctor, you start at A, you go to B, and you're done. With sports psychology, it's kind of depending on the load that you want to do, what level of athlete you want to work with, what kind of standards there are, that kind of stuff. So.
Okay. So, let's go. How did you get your job?
The job I have now, so I've had several different jobs as a sports psychologist. Primarily it's been around teaching or coaching. So I taught for a couple of years at the University of Kansas. When I came back to PLU, I filled in the sabbaticals where I taught classes. So typically if you're teaching at a university, you're teaching, you know, you might do 2 or 3 sports psychology classes, but then you're also doing some other, you know, like history and foundations of PE or some other classes that are needed. I've taught educational psychology, so having been a teacher for years and kind of morphing the two, educational psychology with sports psychology and performance psychology, and using that for teaching. So I've done a number of different things in sports psychology. Currently, a former PLU athlete that I worked with back in 2000 is a physician's assistant. He started a company and said, hey, I need a team builder and somebody that can work with our staff and help them grow and learn and perform under pressure and those kind of things. And I thought of you. And I go, whoa, thank you. So that's kind of how I got started now, and I'm blessed because he allows me to come back and coach here at PLU and be involved with things like that. So.
All right, sweet. So we touched on it about any jobs and experiences that led you to your present position. So as a sports psych, just a sports psych of it, what is your typical work day like?
Well, so if I look at my workday now, like in the fall, I go to my day job, which is at United Wound Healing. I work on team building and staff development with them, and then I come to football practice, and then I work with football, you know, until about 8 at night or so. So that's pretty much a typical fall. Before, when I was here before at PLU, I would teach some classes, you know, go work out at a period of time, meet with athletes in between the day. So I had a lot of athletes in class, which is a great way to kind of start a relationship and start asking some questions about what they want to do and where they want to go, what they want to learn about, and then they come in individually and we work together doing stuff like that. So it can be typically around coaching and sport. It's a lot of time and a lot of investing in just being around and being available for people. The more you are, the more they tend to trust you and listen to you and ask for advice and those kind of things.
All right. And let's see, gotta flip these two. So what are the typical hours in a week? Touched on you're like usually at 8 for you as a sports psych, and then adding on to any extra jobs on the side, like at the healthcare fitness.
Yeah, so it depends on the season. So if I'm like pretty much, and I'd say I'm full-time with football, but I'm at all the practices and those kind of things. So that will be, you know, I'll start at 7 in the morning and finish 7 or 8 at night. So it's basically a 12-hour day. Now, where I'm in the football off season, I'll help with, for example, women's basketball maybe 1 day a week. So most of mine's kind of 8 to 4 kind of day, and then every once in a while, I, you know, go to a game or go to a practice and extend that day. So.
All right, and so what are some like required skills you need like on a day-to-day basis?
So one thing I think that's super helpful is just the ability to listen and ask really good questions. Because there's a lot of theory and ideas out there which are all great, but if you don't understand where people are coming from first, that kind of helps you start to develop a plan if you're going to either train or deal with something that's not going well. Listening to them and understanding where they're coming from, and then taking what you know and kind of dovetailing it to what their needs are. I think that's really important. I think it's important to understand, you know, some basic information, but also then to be able to take, when you know a lot of higher level information, to be able to communicate it in a way that's clear and simple. one of the questions that I asked in my PhD program was, how do you take all this wealth of knowledge that you've gathered over all these years of study and work with one athlete one-on-one when you have all these ideas in your mind going, oh, well, you can do this and you can do this, and you're all excited, and it's like, okay, what can I help Tim with today that's going to help move him in the right direction to build a skill that's going to keep growing and growing over time? So I think that's a great skill to have, to be able to take all your knowledge, focus on the fundamental things, and build from there.
Okay. So let's see what are like some parts that are most challenging in your job and also most enjoyable?
Probably one of the most challenging things about psychology is it's really hard to measure. So, you know, you look at a strength coach or track and field coach, it's really easy. We run you in a race, we time how fast you run, and then we say, hey, you're getting better or you're not. And then we work on things to help you improve or sustain that level of performance. With psychology, it's really like, well, we really can't see inside your head, so we have to be able to communicate really well so that we know what's going on. So that's one of the probably biggest challenges, is helping people see the value in it when it's really kind of what people will call a soft science. But you use a ton of observation, a ton of listening, a ton of the data that you get back from people. There's lots of information out there. It just doesn't always look like a 40 time or a, bench press score or something like that. That's really easy to measure and evaluate scientifically. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. One of the greatest joys I have is just watching athletes do what they love at the highest level that they can do it, and just walk out of any competitive situation with just this great joy in their hearts of accomplishing maybe something they never thought they could do before, or a group of people doing something that they could never do by themselves. Those are the moments for me that really bring me great joy, is just watching them rise up to be great champions.
Man, it's like some stuff we get in our email notebook.
Yeah, there you go.
So I guess these two like relate, any positives and negatives. Is there any other positive and negatives, like I don't know, financial is usually like a private question. But.
Yeah, well, financially, to make a living as a sports psychologist, you have to be a go-getter, you have to be an entrepreneur, you have to really know your stuff. There aren't a lot of jobs out there, just people are waiting for people to run in. You have to be really good at what you do. So that can be hard at times. The benefits of it, like I say, for me, it's just watching the people you work with go from either struggling or being frustrated with something they love, which is probably their sport, to where they're just having a great, joyful experience in their outcomes. They're able to just play freely, enjoy what they do, and enjoy doing it together. So.
All right, and before I ask this question, I was thinking about, is there any sports like that you work in like sports psychology with most? Like, do you work with basketball, football, mainly talking with kids?
Yeah, so football has been a big one. Basketball has been another one. Volleyball. My brother's an assistant coach here. We grew up playing volleyball. So, I've worked enough camps and stuff to understand the game. One of the things I find is, it really helps if you understand the game or what it is that the people you're dealing with are going through. Whether it's physically conditioning or strategies in terms of the game or things that they need to focus on. Then you can take this idea of focus, for example, which you're trying to teach someone. You can say, okay, what I want you to do now is focus on that person's hip as he's coming to you when you're trying to block him. Because if you're looking up at his head, you're going to get distracted by him trying to fake you out. If you look right at his hip, so really I'm teaching you a psychological tool, which is where to focus. That will help you. That will help you physically execute the skill you're talking about. If I don't understand tackling or open field tackling at all, then I'm just going and I'm saying stuff to you like, "Hey, Tim, you got to focus." It's not really helping you. I mean, you need to focus, but you're not sure what do I focus on, when do I focus on it. So understanding what you're trying to teach is a huge part of being a good sports psychologist.
All right, and. Last question, can you suggest anything or any ways a student could obtain this necessary experience?
Yeah, so I would say find the stuff you love to do. If you love sports, volunteer to coach teams, work with Little League teams. The more you can be around sport and different people, different coaches, different styles of coaching, the more you can see, hey, what's going to work for me? What's my fit? When I teach, whether it's through coaching or teaching, or because essentially as a sports psychologist, that's what I do. My background's in education, so if I'm going to work with somebody, it's going to be about teaching and training. So finding opportunities that you can get into those, as many as you can with as many different people as you can, will really help you kind of dial into what's really important for you, and then what are the sports that you want to be involved with, what kind of people do you want to be involved with. If you want to make money at it, you got to think about things like golf and tennis and things where people that are doing those sports have money, so they can hire a tennis coach and a sports psychologist, or an ice figure skater that says, okay, well, I can pay for ice time and somebody that helps me with my mental strategies for ice skating. So it really depends on where your passions are, if you want to try to make a living at it versus if you want to just involve it in your coaching and teaching that you do every day anyway. So there's a really great balance and a real wide range of ways that you could go with it.
Awesome. Thank you,
Yeah,
Doc.
you bet. Anytime.
Yeah, and if you guys want to talk with him, I bet he's open to everything. Sweet.
All right.